Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow.
If you have your Bible, please turn to chapter Exodus 19. Exodus chapter 19. And we're just going to go ahead and we are going to jump right into this. We are actually going to read, what we're going to do is we're going to read all of chapter 19, but we are not going to go through all of chapter 19. So what we're going to do this morning is I'll read it through, I'll give you a quick synopsis, and then we'll just go ahead and we're going to camp out in verse 3 to 6 this morning. So I'll go ahead and read, and we are in Exodus chapter 19. As you know, we've been going through and preaching through the book of Exodus. It goes, on the third moon, after the people of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that day they came to the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from Rephidim and came into the wilderness of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. There Israel encamped before the mountain. While Moses went up to God, the Lord called to him out of the mountain, saying, thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possessions among all people. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words that the Lord had commanded them. All the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses reported the words to the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak to you, and may also believe you forever. When Moses told the words of the people to the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down Mount Sinai in the sight of the people, and he shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people and washed their garments. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day, do not go near a woman. On the mountain, on the morning of the third day, there are thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain and very loud trumpet blasts, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, because the Lord has descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like a smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. And the Lord said to Moses, go down and warn the people, lest they break through the Lord to look, and many of them perish. Also let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. And Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you yourself warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain and consecrate it. And the Lord said to him, go down and come up, bringing Aaron with you. Do not let the priests and people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he breaks out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. All right, so that is a very long chapter. And we're only going to be looking at 3 verses this morning. But we wanted to go through this. So pretty much I want to give a very short synopsis of what in the world is going on, all right? So they are, as you know, we left Israel. They're kind of marching around. And they're heading towards the promised land. But we know that they're kind of taking the long way about. In chapter 3 in Exodus, so way back when, Moses actually meets God on this mountain. That's where the burning bush is, right? So Moses sees this burning bush on this mountain, and God's talking to him through this burning bush. And pretty much what God says is, your job, Moses, is to go and free Israel from Egypt, right? You're going to be my spokesperson, and you're going to go and you're going to tell Pharaoh to let my people go, and then we're going to bring you over, and we're going to worship on this mountain. He says that. He goes, we're going to bring you to this mountain. I'm going to bring these people to this mountain, and you're going to worship me here. And so that's kind of what's happening right now. They go, and they finally get to this mountain. And they're supposed to worship God in this mountain. And we see that this is this crazy thing going on, all right? So God comes, and he comes to go he's like, all right, here's my presence. I'm going to show you myself. And you got thunder, you got lightning, you got dark clouds. It's just nuts, okay? And so the big point of that we just kind of want to gloss over this morning, but I wanted for you to kind of keep in the back of your mind, is that our God that we worship is not a small God. These people were scared out of their minds, okay? I mean, think about it. You'd probably be scared of your mind too. You're sitting at this mountain like, don't touch it or you die, right? We'll stone you, we'll shoot you with arrows, don't touch it. And on top of that, you really need to take care and just kind of you need to really focus on preparing yourself to meet God. He gave them 3 days. It's your job is to wash your clothes. You need to just mentally and physically get ready to meet God. All right, this is not a small thing. It's not hey guys, right? It's really showing just how big and powerful and strong God is. And God is so holy, this idea of he's pure, he's perfect, and he's done no wrong. There's no evil that's in the sight of him, that even as people who've done even the smallest thing against his word, against his will, without properly preparing themselves, they just die. I mean, that's just insane, okay? And that's pretty much the big thing here, where God's and so we got Moses, literally the mediator. He's the spokesperson of God, and he's going up and down this mountain, okay? So I think about how, imagine if God was on, what is that place that we hike? I don't even remember, the place in Fremont? Yes, Mission Peak, right? Imagine if you were Moses, and then you have to hike all the way up Mission Peak. I'm pretty sure Sinai's, I don't know. I'm guessing it's going to be bigger, right? So imagine if you have to go all the way up Mission Peak. God's like, hey, can you tell Israel this? Sure, right? And you go all the way down. It's God says this. Okay, and this is what he said. And you go back up. I mean, this is literally what's going on, back and forth. It's not because God's deaf or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's not because God's I can't hear you. I'm up on this mountain. It's really showing just how God's I am just this holy. You know what I'm saying? I am just this holy. I'm this great. I'm this transcendent that you need to, I will speak through you through Moses, right? You can't even come up to me yourself. And that's just how crazy it is. And we here as, Christians post Old Testament, right? Post New Testament, we don't quite get this that much because we have full access to God through Christ. So we don't get this, but it's really good for us to really understand, this is crazy. How we can't, the fact that we can approach God in confidence is kind of crazy, because back then, Israelites don't feel too confident, right? They're shaking in their boots a little bit. They think they're going to die, all right? But we're not going through that this morning, but that kind of gives you a little background and a little kind of as we kind of roll into chapter 20, where we learn about the 10 Commandments. But what I want to focus on this morning is just 3 verses. Right, chapter 19, verse 3 through verse 6. And we're really just going to camp out, right? No pun intended. We're going to camp out on these 3 verses this morning. And we're going to see exactly, before we see how transcendent, how big, how powerful, how awesome God is. I want us to look at what God kind of says to his people first. And what does that mean for us? So this morning, I want us to look at how faith and obedience to God really tells us how we relate to him and his creation. So in other words, God gives his followers a new identity and a new calling, a new purpose in life, I should say. That God gives his people new purpose and new calling and new identity. All right, so let's look at verse 3. And it goes, right, so you know what's going on. We already read through it, right? They're at the mountain. So Moses went up to God. You know, this is his first trip up the mountain, right? So when Moses went up to God, the Lord called out to him out of the mountain, saying, he goes, thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the people of Israel, right? So God goes, I got a very important message that I need you to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, and we're going to stop right there, right? We're going to stop right in the middle of the sentence. Now, I want us to look through this. All right, so why we're stopping here is because right when I read that, I had one question. And I wonder if you're all thinking the same thing. Because my first thought when I heard that was, wait a minute, something's not right. What do you mean? God gives a conditional statement here, right? And so I go, God, you give this conditional statement, but I grew up learning that it is by faith we are saved. When we spent a lot of time here at the crossing trying to, just like we preach through this idea of that we're saved through grace. We don't work our way to God. And we say, and we go, because of what Christ has done, we don't have to work our way to God. We're never able to work our way to God. And then I look at this, and my immediate thought is, God's telling them they have to do something. And this is this term, this idea, we go, it sounds like works righteousness, which that pretty much means you got to work to get righteous, to get right, to get good with God. You have to do something. And I go, they have to do something to get right with God? I'm like, that doesn't sound, what's going on? How do you have to do, why would these people have to do something to get right with God? And then a lot of us, here's the thing that a lot of us might think, if we've been in church for a while, a lot of us think, well, the Old Testament God, yeah, you have to do a lot of things to get right with God. It's only when the New Testament you don't have to. But here's the thing, I go, that can't be right, because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's always the same. Why would he change? And I go, that doesn't make sense. And so I started looking into it. And here's the thing that I realized what God is calling these people to do. The first thing for us this morning, that as followers of God, as he gives us new identity, he gives us new purpose, he's teaching them how to follow. He's teaching them what faith is like. So the immediate question for us this morning is, what does it mean by covenant? What is this covenant that God is asking them to keep? So this idea of covenant is like a contract, but more. A contract, if you break it, is done, right? The covenant is like this relationship aspect together. You can go into contract with somebody and not have a relationship with them. You can't get into a covenant with somebody and not have a relationship with them. It's going, I will uphold my end and I'll help you uphold your end. It's this idea of this relationship. And so God made this covenant to Abraham, which is the father of Israel, like the descendant. And God made this promise, pretty much, to Abraham. He goes, your people, which is Israel, he goes, I'm making this promise to you. That very simplistic, big idea picture. His promise is, my unbreaking promise is I'm going to love you, love your people forever. That's my promise to you. And then he does that through I'm going to multiply you and make you a great nation. I'm going to be your God. You're going to be my people. You're going to be my light to the rest of the nation. That's what Israel is supposed to be, right? And so, but the big idea is I choose to love you forever. And so when God says, I want you to keep my covenant, he's saying, I want you to trust in my love. Is far different than works righteousness. He's not saying you have to do stuff. He goes, I want you to trust me. And in essence, that's what faith is, trust. He goes, I want you to trust me. I want you to trust what I say. Right? If you indeed obey my voice. He goes, I want you to trust my words. I want you to trust my love. So he goes, we're just talking about big picture here. There's no rules. There's no commands. There's nothing. He just goes there and goes, I want you to trust me. I want you to trust what I tell you, and I want you to trust my promise to you. That's it. There's no here's the list. This is what I want you to do. This is what he goes, I just want you to trust me. And it's really sounding like a parent talking to their kids. I think about this idea of covenant, an idea of trusting in love, somebody's love. And I think about, it's like when I was younger, I didn't understand a lot of things. I didn't understand why my parents did stuff. How many of us kind of go, when I was younger, I didn't quite get why we had to do certain things, right? I know a lot of you probably think, so when I was younger, I didn't understand why it was not right to eat all my Halloween candy in one sitting. That just didn't make sense to me, why not? Gotta eat, gotta survive, got food, sustainable food, or maybe not that sustainable, right? We got food, and it's like, why can't I eat all my food all at once, right? Why can't I eat all my candy? Or why can't I stay up as late as I want? Why can't I, leave the house with my diaper on? And all these, I don't know what it's not. And you think about these things, we grew up with all these rules in our family. And most of us who are a little bit older, we can at least look back on these rules and go, oh, ultimately they were for my good. All right? How many of you here can think about something that you thought was ridiculous as a kid, but now that you look back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Anybody? We got a bunch of people that have terrible parents or terrible kids. Right? I don't know. Right? Because a lot of you are like, no, they didn't make. Okay, I get it. Some of us, parents are not perfect. But I mean, as a parent, as I look at my child, I set a lot of rules for her, okay? Don't go messing with the socket, right? I've learned that kids, it seems like they're programmed to self-destruct, okay? I want to climb off the bed. I want to, kill myself. Any opportunity I get. I turn around, I'm trying to I'm going to put this in my mouth. I'm going to take this fork and stick it somewhere I shouldn't. I'm going to climb off the bed, and you tell them not to. So I'm going, these kids are planned to kill them. That's what it is. First 5 years of their life is probably I'm here to make my parents' life miserable by trying to commit suicide. And that's what I'm thinking. And so I got all these rules for them is to keep them alive, right? Keep them happy. Trust me, you'll be much happier alive. And so here's what God's doing. I got commands for you to keep you happy, because you know what? You listening to me, I know what's good for you. So he goes, I want you to keep my command. He goes, obey my voice. Keep my covenant. It's like this parent going, I trust my love. Trust what I say. So a lot of us this morning, we go, how? What does that mean? To trust in God's love for me. To keep that covenant. Here's the thing. We're all covenant breakers. Did you realize? And you might not know that. We're all covenant breakers. Just like Israel. Because if you keep on reading, they say that they'll do it. Yeah, they say, yeah, we'll keep it. And then we'll spend the next 5,000 pages reading about how they keep on going worshiping other gods. They don't obey God's word. They broke God's laws. They broke God's commandments. They broke God's covenant. And we're no different. Here's the thing, right? God says that there is a condition. This condition is true. This condition is real. if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, there will be real benefits. But you got to keep them. Even though as we look at this and we go, keeping God's covenant is not based on our works, it's really based on trust in Him and trust in His love, we still can't even do that. But the thing is, God sent another to actually fully obey God's commandments and fully keep His covenant. That man is Jesus, His only Son. And so there is a real condition to this that we don't want to escape, and we don't want to we don't have to work our way. But there is a real condition that if we do not keep His word, if we don't obey His laws, obey His voice, if we do not keep His covenant, there is a real condition. But the thing is, Christ came and He kept God's rules and God's laws. He kept God's covenant. And what opportunity is out there for us is that we are able to now inherit that covenant-keeping, commandment-keeping life for our own. And He takes our covenant-breaking, rule-failing life. Did you get that? So this still applies to us, and the rest of what we read will still apply to us, but it only applies to us because of what Jesus done. It's because of what Jesus done. Imagine yourself sitting at your performance review for work. And you knew this past quarter or past year, however often you go through your performance reviews, you showed up late a lot. You probably surfed the web all the time. Probably didn't do a lot of work. And you're just hoping that you don't get fired. You know what I mean? No. And so the guy, your boss, kind of looks. He just takes out your stuff. He's looking through your portfolio, or, looking through your review. And he goes, "Man, great job. You went above and beyond. You did awesome work here. Hey, we're going to give you a promotion. We're going to give you a raise." He goes, "That's great." And you're like, that can't be right, that's not my review. That can't be right. But if you glimpse through and you look at it real quick and you see what he's holding, he's actually holding a performance review of somebody else that has not been credited to you. See, that's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus did. And what He done, His covenant keeping is now given to us. All right, so I wanted to really get that down before we keep on going. All right, that this idea of being a covenant keeper is because of what Christ has done, not because of what we have done. So let's look at the benefits that God gives us for being that. And He goes, all right, so here we go. It's verse 5. We'll read it again. He goes, "Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant," as we know, it's only through Christ that we can live and inherit that. He goes, "You shall be my treasured possession among all people, for the earth is mine." We see that God follows up this condition with two statements, these two "you shall" statements, and He's very clear of who He's calling us to be. Those who were once covenant breakers are now covenant keepers through Christ, and now as covenant keepers through Christ, He goes, "You shall be my treasured possession, my precious people." Think about this. I want us to really stop and just meditate on that. If you are in Christ, if you are a follower of Christ, you're in His kingdom, you're His child, you're His treasured possession. You're his treasured possession. See, our world doesn't really work like that, does it? I mean, a lot of us feel like we really have to earn our way to become this treasured possession, to be worthwhile. I mean, if you think about it, the people that you call friends, there's a reason why they were your friends, even to begin with. They had something to offer you, right? Or you had something to offer them. They were maybe funny or friendly. You like to talk with them. They made you laugh, right? You maybe shared the same hobbies. There's a reason why you're friends. Or, I mean, if you think about it, everything for us, we're measured up to something. If you're at work, you get performance reviews. And maybe you're applying for a job, they're looking at your resume. You gotta measure up to something. If you are a student, your grades your grades reflect like who they will mark you to be. If you want to go to a college, they don't sit you down and go, talk to me. Most colleges don't, right? They're not going to sit you down, they're going to talk to me. I want to get to know you, right? They're not going to say, it doesn't matter what your grades are, but, I really like you. I'm just going to accept you. No one does that. They're going to look at your transcript. They're going to look at what extracurricular activities you have. They're going to look at what you've done. And it's all about proving yourself, isn't it? It's all about proving yourself. I am worthwhile. I am worth to, I bring something to the table, so I should work at this company. I bring something to the table, so you should accept me into this school. I bring something to the table, so you should give me a raise. And some of us even feel that way at home. I bring something to the table, so I should be acceptable as a spouse. Or you don't do enough, so I'm not going to accept you as my child. Or I'm not going to accept you as my parent because you do this or you don't do that. I mean, all of us feel this pressure of like, I have to do something to be something. And God says, you are my treasured possession. You're my treasured possession. You're my precious people. You're mine. And yes, the condition is if you keep my covenants and obey my voice. But the thing is, we realize that we didn't even do that. But because Christ did that, he's now going, I credit that to you. You're my treasured possession. And we don't even, we didn't earn this. It wasn't given to us. God just says, you're precious to me. I'm going, that is crazy. Why? I didn't even uphold my end of the bargain. You're precious. I remember when I was in high school, my dad made a deal with me. All right, he said that if I got a certain SAT score, he will buy me a new car. Pretty good, pretty sweet, right? Yeah. I wasn't exactly the smartest of kids. And on top of that, I was not exactly the hardest working of kids. I like to say I'm not smart, but it's really more of like I just didn't work very hard. Not to say I'm smart. I wasn't hardworking. Right? So we never found out if I was smart or not. I just know I wasn't hardworking. So he kind of put this incentive for me, right? If you got this SAT score, I'll buy you a brand new car. So I mean that's a huge incentive, right? Like. I don't think a lot of parents here will they're probably judging my dad. That is, you should just get the grade, right? You don't get a car. If you don't get the grade, you just get out of my house. No, I'm just kidding, right? So that was the incentive kind of laid out in front of me. Needless to say, I didn't get it. I didn't get that grade or that score. And so I remember when I didn't get that score, and I was like, well, that's it, But actually, in the end, he still bought me that car. And I definitely didn't feel like I earned it, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I have a score to pull up and see, I earned it. And that's what grace is, you know what I mean? And so when God says, you're my treasured possession, you can't say I earned it. God says, you have to keep my covenants, right? You have to obey my voice, and then you're my treasured possession. You're like, okay, I'll do that. And you realize, I didn't do that. He goes, it's okay, Christ did that. You're still my treasured possession. Isn't that crazy? I think a lot of us this morning need to realize that, because we've based our identity on so many things. We based it on how we look. We based it on how we perform musically, or we base it on how we perform, at school or athletically. We base it on the achievements we've gotten, or maybe the achievements we didn't get and we're striving to get. We're basing it on how many badges we can get, We're basing it on so many things. A lot of us base it on we feel like we need approval from our parents or our friends or our family, and we've forgotten that God says, no, you're mine. You're my treasured possession. You're my precious people. And because of that, and I want us to really walk through this very slowly, God has done everything, all right? God is the one that freed them from slavery. They didn't have to earn that. That was like a free, I've given you freedom from slavery. They didn't have to do something to free themselves from slavery. God freed them. He said, I bore you, like I bore you on eagle's wing. I took you out of slavery, all right? God did that, not them. They didn't fight their way through. God did that. And then God tells them that I have this covenant for you, this great covenant. You know what the covenant is? It's not you got to do anything. You need to trust that. You need to trust in my love. That's a pretty sweet deal, right? Your covenant keeping, your end of the bargain is to trust that I'll keep my end of the bargain, and I love you. That's the covenant keeping. Trust that my words are for your best. Now, if you think about it, that's pretty good. And then the fact that we can't even keep that, and Israel didn't keep that, God still goes, through Christ, I will give you all that stuff. Through Christ, you still are treasured possession. So far, God has done everything. And I want us to realize that is nothing we have done. Nothing, okay? We don't earn our way anywhere. We don't earn our way to God. But then this is what God says. All right? I want us to realize that. Get that deep in your mind. We did not earn our way. There's nothing we can do or ever do to earn God's approval. It's already given to us. Okay? Through Christ, it's already been given to us. And so this is what God says. He goes, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. And why I wanted to really emphasize that is because God not only has given us new identity, but He has given us a new calling, a new purpose in life. And that purpose is to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Now he's defining how we live and how we act and who we are. Not to earn anything, but because of who we already are. And the thing is that this translates right into our lives because Peter, he writes in the New Testament in 1 Peter 2:9, he reflects this idea. He says, but you are my chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for His own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. Peter goes, what they're saying right here, what God is talking about Israel, because He's talking about you. And goes, so what does that mean? Philip Graham Ryken, he writes in his commentary when he writes, he goes, God's precious people have a special purpose. He goes, we're not called simply to salvation, but also to service. We're not called simply to salvation, but also to service. And then he says again, he says later on, he says that God's plan for Israel was part of His plan for the world. Israel was chosen not only from the nations, but also for the nations. You see, Israel, their main purpose is to be a light and be an example for the rest of the nations to come and know who God is. See, the thing is, as a priest, what they do is they're in very simplistic terms, is they're there to bring people closer to God, right? They kind of mediate. They're the one that brings about God's justice, God's love, God's grace and mercy, and that's kind of like what they do. They perform. They're the one that brings people to God. And so when God is saying that, you're a royal priesthood. He says that for all believers. We're royal priesthoods. We are all priests. Our job, all of our jobs, is to bring God to the darkness. Bring God to those who don't have it. That is what we're called to do. That we're not called to just be and experience and just have it with God and just like kick it with God, and that's awesome. But our end goal is also to share God's love, God's mercy, God's forgiveness to the world. We're chosen into his kingdom, and we're chosen to share his kingdom. We're not supposed to just keep it to ourselves. We're chosen into his kingdom, and we're chosen to share his kingdom. I probably shared this before, but I'll share it again. I'm a big fan of The Office. A lot of you here, if you've been here for a while, you probably realize that. Thank you to The Office, I was able to get a girlfriend, wife, and now apparently a little baby girl, right? As some of you might know, I actually stole a line from The Office to ask out Dana, and right? So look at me. So I am a big fan of The Office. I loved it. It came out when I was in college, and I was like very devoted to The Office. I would share with friends. I would literally get people episodes to watch. I would try to encourage them along the way. I'm like, season 1 is kind of awkward and won't feel good, but trust me, it gets better, right? Just keep on going. I'll like rewatch episodes with them. I'll talk with them about it. I love The Office, and I literally became like The Office evangelist, right? Like, I loved it. It was great. I owe many things to The Office, right? And it was like, I did this because I go, it was really funny, but it was well done. And I was like, this is one of those things that many years down the road, people are going to watch and they're going to go, wow, that was awesome. It's like, it's going to be like Cheers or Friends and all these like great TV shows that like people still watch and like and enjoy, and I go, this brings a lot of enjoyment. It makes me laugh. I like watching it, and I want to share that with other people. And don't we all do this? Like, if there's something that we like or something we're really passionate about, we share it with people. We love to talk to people about whatever it may be. If you play an instrument and you love playing an instrument and you got somebody asking you, say, hey, can you teach me how to play? Aren't you like just like excited beyond anything? It's like, yeah, I would love to teach you how to play. Right? Or it's like, hey, I heard that you played this video game. I love it. It's like you want to share experiences with people. You're like wanting to go out of your way to get things into people's hands because you know they like it. A lot of us here love to play board games, and you go and you buy board games no one has ever even heard of, and you go and you teach them how to play, and you gather people, and like, this is fun, this is great, right? And then it's like, oh, this is cool. Like, without you, I would never like known of this board game, or I've never known of how to play this instrument, or I would never known this, or I've never known that. And we love to share our passions. The things we enjoy, the things we know will bring joy into people's lives. Right? I've been playing softball for the last 3 years. We've been playing recreationally, and we have a softball, co-ed softball team. I've noticed that there's these guys on our team that what they do, they come to practice all the time, but they spend a lot of their time just teaching people how to play the game. Like, that's really cool. Like, they spend their time, they spend all this time just teaching people how to play softball. Because they like it, they enjoy it. They want to see people succeed. They want to see them to get better. Like, that's what they want to do. And I go, that's so cool. So my first question is, why don't we share Christ? We know. I would say a lot of us who are believers, we're passionate about Christ. We know he brings joy. And he brings enjoyment and pleasure. We know that following him and being with him is just awesome. It's great. So we share all these things, but we forget that the most important thing we don't share. Why? How hard would it be to sit somebody down and just go, you know what? I just want to share with you what Christ has done in my life. And that might sound weird to you, but there's just so much joy. And can I just share with you a little bit of that joy that I received? Can I just share with you a little bit of that peace I received? let's just talk about, I just want to talk to you and share with you what Christ has done in my life. We don't have to argue. We don't need a debate. If you have questions or whatever, if you reject, that's fine. But can I just share that with you? Just like how I share everything else in my life. It's like, is that okay? I bet you a lot of your friends would be like, oh, at least listen. Wouldn't they? So what would it look like for us? At the end of the day, it's always the same message from God. Trust and obey in Christ. Trust that Christ has kept the covenant. Trust that Christ has kept the commands on your behalf. Trust that Christ has paid for your penalty of sin. You are God's treasured possessions. Don't forget that. And he is making you into a people to share his love to the world. Let's just live by those truths this morning. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your big, audacious, crazy grace. A God so transcendent that shakes mountains and that really can strike fear into anybody when you reveal yourself. You've chosen to love us, and that we can approach you with confidence, that we don't have to be afraid to approach you. Because of Christ, we have kept the covenant. We have obeyed your voice. We are your treasured possessions. We have confidence in that. So I thank you for that. I pray all this in your son's name.